I think what Central meant to me was I learned how to build relationships. I learned how to grow friendships. I still have friends that I went to high school with, and I treasure their friendship. And we learned a lot from each other. We were allowed to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, and I think we grew while we were here. We spent a lot of time in the gym and out on the football field. I had a lot of fun playing football and rugby and a number of sports during my years at Central. So I think my greatest memories are around games, around competition, around trips. The rugby team, we used to get on the bus and sing rugby songs, and we'd go to Penetanguishene or Borden or Stayner or Collingwood and play rugby, and those memories just last for so long. It was so much fun. Football, we were very competitive football. As a matter of fact, Bruce Clark, who was our head coach at the time, told me the year after I left Central, they went on a winning spree and they won 10 straight jabosses, and Bruce told me I was the reason. Once I left, Central started winning. Bruce Clark, he was just a terrific mentor. He was a great coach. He was a wonderful teacher. Just an unforgettable man. We have a number of teachers. Back then, our principal was Ron Mossop. Ron was a terrific guy. He was a real people person, and we used to spend most of our time with the vice principal. but Ron was the politician, and Vic Knox, who was an excellent teacher, was the vice principal, and Vic had to deal with our, well, shall we say, mischievous sides. I can't actually say I recall ever being called down to the office for disciplinary reasons. I used to spend a lot of time in the office doing the announcements. And I think as my career unfolded later in radio and television, that had a lot to do with it, because it gave me the confidence to talk to people. It gave me the confidence to speak into a microphone, and we used to write skits. So Steve Ruddick, who went on to a television career and still is on TV, Steve and I did the announcements for a number of years, and we had an awful lot of fun, and Vic Knox and Ron Mossop put up with us. And it made a big difference in my life, no doubt about it. I actually came to Central. At that time I lived in North Territory, but there was only one band, and my folks wanted me to be in the band, and I had to come to Central. So I came to Central, towing my trombone behind me, and I spent a few years in the band with Dr. Fisher, who was amazing. Fisher Auditorium, people know of that now. It's the main auditorium here at Central Collegiate, but it's named after W. Allen Fisher. He was a terrific leader, conductor. Loved music, was a historian. He's written books about the county of Simcoe, and I had the privilege of sitting in his history classes, and he was just a tremendous man. And under his tutelage, the Barrie Central Band became synonymous with excellence all over the world. I remember the first years I attended Central, I think it was through the cadets program, but there was actually a rifle club here at Barrie Central Collegiate, and we would bring our guns to school, and we would do target practice in the downstairs gym. If you can imagine that in this day and age, but back then we literally put our guns in a little gun bag and came to school. We probably were known for hijinks, my friends and I. We had one time when we had a favorite teacher we liked to play tricks on. She had a good sense of humor. And she came in the classroom one day, and we were all gathered over at the windows, and we were in the third floor classroom of the old Barrie Central building. Probably this would have been 1967 or 8. And we had a student laying in the garden 3 stories below, and as she ran over to the windows and looked out, you can imagine what she thought. We thought it was pretty funny at the time. I'm not sure she did. Yo! That was our favorite saying on all the sports teams. We all, after every game, we'd all go, yo! So
there were several teachers who really inspired me throughout Central, and like Mr. Consolo, Miss Weening, Mrs. McLaurin. But there was a teacher that I met this year. He just came to Central. His name is Mr. Fowler, and he taught me advanced functions and calculus, and it was because of him that I realized my passion for physics and math, and that's what I'm pursuing next year. It was great from a current student's point of view to see people who used to go here and how they still love and cherish their school, and I hope that further down the line I'll be able to do the same.
One of my favorite memories of Central was the Barrie Central soccer team, my grade 12 year. It was lots of fun going to the tournaments, going to the games. Really great team, really great coach. Just lots of fun, lots of love, lots of energy. Great time all around. Grade 10 white attire was pretty interesting. That's our school dance.
I could list for you every teacher that I had in this school. They were very much a part of my life and an influence on my life for many years, forever. I still think about them. We played basketball in the gym of the old school, which, you know, was down in the basement and had a few seats up at the end, but we had some pretty good basketball teams. When we beat Midland 11 points to 7 points, and Laking was the top scorer with 3 baskets. Because in those days, you know, we only played half court. Well, we played 2/3 court, and we could only bounce twice, and the guards couldn't, you know, shoot. And so basketball rules were quite different, and scores were quite low. And so it's sort of fun to read now that, you know, when it says McCoy scores winning basket as they beat Aurelia 13-11 or some silly score. So basketball was big for me, and it continued to be big through my university days. I played university basketball. Yes, they were good. They were good years. I mean, some of my best friends are friends that I made here. Our 6 children graduated from Central, and they all played in the band. Well, the girls all played in the band all the way through. The 2 younger ones, the 2 boys, were too involved in athletics, and Ellen Fisher said, you gotta either play football or you gotta play in the band, and the football and the track and field and the volleyball won out. I chaperoned a band trip to Europe, one of the early ones they did to Kerkrade, Holland in 1970. And I was teaching at that time. I taught at North Collegiate from 1960 to 88, except for 1 year that I taught here. Fisher Auditorium was built by Barrie Collegiate Institute Board with donations from people in Barrie, including us, when that auditorium went up. It was not built by the County School Board, it was built by Barrie, and it should come back to Barrie. This school has got all that music history too that you know, has been so wonderful from the days. I played in an orchestra in this school when I was in public school. When Alan Fisher first came, he started with an orchestra, and there were not many people playing strings in Barrie at that time. By the time I got here for grade 9, he had switched to a band. He had given up on that because there just were not enough trained strings to do an orchestra. The band majorettes from the band would be out front twirling their batons, and we'd be marching along afterwards. And because it was war years, you know, Remembrance Day for me, and after that, all the schools I taught at, and it was quite hard for kids to understand the intensity that I felt for Remembrance Day, because I was losing friends. I mean, I was a little young for the war years, but the boys of Barrie that I knew that were only 2 or 3 years older from my church connection as well as from my school connection, you know, the boys that were in grade 13 and grade 12 when I came into high school went off to war. My father was my model, and he was in politics and then in law, and he graduated from Central. And I have here, one of them was Julius Caesar, printed in 1910, Cambridge University Press, with my father's name in the front. Duncan F. McCoy, BCI, Barrie. And he graduated from the school when it was down on Blake Street. Hurricane Hazel came down, the creek cuts through the property across the road that is now to the left of the restaurant. And it came under Dunlop Street, and it cut a swath across the corner, so that the property on this corner, where there is now a parking lot in the front yard of this, may still have some underground creek under it, because it cut a great chasm, and there was a great hole where the creek came through, found its way across to the tannery and into the lake at that time. I was head girl when I was here. I was president of the student council. I was the valedictorian the next year for commencement. They were big years for me, and yes, I was always involved in some kind of clubs, and usually took over.
Happy wife, happy life, but if I wanna be happy later on tonight, I think I'll let her think she's won the fight, 'cause I'd rather be happy than right.
Although I only attended Central for a short amount of time during a move when we were moving homes, I do have a lot of memories of this theater and the school in general. This is the school my father went to. So for me, this is, I always wanted to know what his experience was like in high school. I asked him, what year did you graduate? And he said, well, I didn't actually graduate. He was talked into returning for his senior year by his father and his older brother. They said, if you go back for your senior year, we'll get this car for you and we'll work on the car and it can be your car. He said, well, that didn't turn out so well. I spent all my time working on the car trying to impress my girlfriend, his girlfriend, who is my mom, and did not graduate. But, you know, got a wonderful wife out of the deal, and don't know where the car is, though.
This is a real football jersey, isn't it? Give it up for Joanne, who is one of the spearheads of putting this whole thing. This is a real football jersey. I hope it happens. All right, where's my denim shirt? I put it on for a minute, but it's a real football jersey. My body forgot to quit growing, so forget it.
I've always been a football fan. I never grew to the size required to be a football player, but so music it was for me. But I always liked the fact that all the schools in this area had a healthy rivalry, and that filtered over to the music programs as well in each school.
I lie, I tell them I'm fine. I don't think they really want to know the truth. What's the use? What can they do? So I look them straight in the eye.
Central's a landmark of Barrie, the first high school here, and it's truly the end of a big era. And going through the history of Central, preparing for the show, I've seen all the facelifts and the different incarnations of the school, and it really is. It is really a place where a lot of lives were changed, and a lot of famous alumni from here. It just reflects how great of a town we come from. I think Barrie's become a really great breeding ground for great music, and we've had great music programs here through all the schools which really foster that, and I'm just proud to be from this area. I'm proud to be somebody who chose to bring their family back from, we were living in Nashville, and chose to put down roots here and give my children the same experience I did growing up. And it's very important for me to always do shows here. And I love doing shows in my hometown. It's kind of like a reunion every time I get to play. And I just love the atmosphere here. The people are great, and it's just, I couldn't think of a better place in the world to live.
And it made me feel I knew I found my place, lost in Barrie Bridge. I was baptized in her own summer moonlight. See, like that? Wow. Oh, amazing. You guys don't need us. Fantastic. Come on.
I played football starting in grade 11, and through Coach Clark and Garland, we won a few championships, GBSSA titles, and with a phenomenal team. Just a great community of friends. I still see quite a few around town. through all the teachers that I had here. They certainly taught me work ethic and commitment and responsibility. I took those through university. I went to Western and studied history and business. And I certainly value all the years that I spent here. And kudos to all the teachers and the staff. Were just phenomenal. I can visualize, it was a snowy November day. I think it was 1988. We were playing in the GBSSA final over here in Red Story Field. And I believe we were playing Collingwood for the title, and it was just an amazing game. It was back and forth, and we ended up victorious. It's a day that I've always remembered, and it was fantastic. I always remember the assemblies we would have here, and the teachers would have their talent shows, and there were just so many characters here, and they would have the audience in hysterics doing different skits and whatnot. Between the basketball and football, I had great friendships in the band as well. I was on student council. There was just so many different areas to get involved in, and we were always encouraged to do that. And that's what I find today. I've got children, and the busiest kids are the ones that are most productive. I was lucky enough to be the president in '88, '89, and it certainly taught me teamwork and how to delegate, and some very tough decisions need to be made. And it was a time that really taught me some great lessons.
As I walk through these halls, I remember all the different generations that went here, each with a special memory. I remember in grade 9 running through the halls looking for my family members' photos, my Opa in the front hall in the 1967 photo, my mom in the school musicals. Sometimes life changes because of an inspirational teacher or a subject you took. For me, it was music and the inspiration and encouragement, the support to be as excellent as you possibly could be. For me, the inspirational teacher was Lisa Perry. Central offers a wide variety of sports and clubs, and because of this, everyone had something to choose from. For me, it was the curling club, musicals, Sears Drama Festival, and the Barrie Central Band. You could always hear laughter in the cafeteria, in the hallways, or even in the classroom, when you and your friends remembered funny moments about school life. Like the expectation for excellence was always there, and you always strive to meet it. And when it was met, it was the best feeling in the world. In Austria and Germany, again, like all 3 girls, because we were all part of the same senior band, went to Austria and Germany, and then there was only about 30 students, and there was 3 chaperones. The 2 music teachers, Miss Perry and Mr. Hilliam, and then Mom as well. And so the ratio between McLaurins and the rest of the trip were a little stacked, but that was just fantastic. Like, every day was new memories, everything else. Like, Grace was the mom of all the guys because they didn't know how to iron their shirts, and we were there for 8 days. And so
I ironed all their shirts in the hallway of a hotel room or a hotel in Austria.
Grace would give her last call, last warning, like, okay, I'm done, like after this is it. And then about, like, I don't know, she was just packing up. Oh wait, got one more shirt.
I had the pleasure of being band president of my graduating year, and just the camaraderie, like we'd have campfires together, we'd all go out for dinner together, play video games, like we would just hang out all the time, and it was amazing. So we actually did really well at our regionals for Music Fest, and we got gold. And then we decided to go on to nationals, so we all performed in Toronto for nationals, and we got gold again. So that was pretty amazing.
I really learned, like, if anything's possible, if you just make it happen. Like, it's, oh, I don't have scheduling time, or I can't do this, where there's no excuse, you can do it. And I really kind of credit a lot of my ambition to going, you know what, in high school, because I was pushed, I can now continue to push myself.
Miss Sharon Beeler, the vice principal, she's been one of the biggest role models in my life. She's taught me so many life lessons, and she really cares about her students, and it's such an honor to be one of her students and be a part of her school. And she's the first person I want to tell on my news to.
I have joined football team, rugby team, the junior band, and I have also joined Classics Club. We were racing to one of our coaches, and so he said, whoever touches him first doesn't have to run a lap. So I was racing there, and I think I was the 3rd person who touched him, but I slapped him on the arm, and it was his bad arm, so he was like turning around, walking away, not even talking to anyone. And so out of sheer fear, I just ran a couple laps. So heritage first started with my grandfather teaching here, and then my mother and my 2 uncles started going here, and now my mother's teaching here, and now I am so privileged to be here now.
Mr. Sisters, but who cares?
Right here.
They're barely in the shot.
I enjoyed many of my classes, just the different ways that teachers were involved with us and taught their lessons. And I definitely would have said this sentence, I would like to be just like. And there was more than one teacher at Central that I could say that about. In grade 9, I was given the privilege of having a leading role in the musical and all of the other grades. So I had friends instantly in grade 12 that took me under their wing and sort of made me their little sister, and that wasn't unusual. It was unusual for me, but it wasn't unusual to the camaraderie at the school. So they taught us as younger students, once we became the seniors, to continue that on and do that as well. But that to me will always stick out in just those life lessons of how that felt to be on the receiving end, and then to really want to give that when it was our turn to do so. I was very involved with the Spirit Club, and that was a lot of fun because then we could come in and cheer for the teams. And to that effect too, when school time was given to go out and cheer on a team, the whole school went out to cheer on the team. When the football team was playing, we would run through the hallways and rally up all the spirit and energy to go. And when we were dismissed early, the whole school went. When you asked about a favorite memory, one of mine was marching from Central to Barrie North. It was a football game, and the whole school went, and no one ducked out. One would stick out that Morley Calvert directed, and it was a favorite because we played a piece of his original music, and it was a very moving piece. It was beautiful, and just to be caught in that moment of recognizing that we are recognizing his talent and also recognizing the caliber that our band could play that music, because he wrote it for a symphony and we were coached and directed and able to play that and to listen to that back. So being part of those recordings, listening back, it's kind of impressive to go, wow, we were part of that. This community should really remember just what a great legacy this school represents and the traditions that it had. And when the name is said, that I know all of the alumni can stand taller and be, just full of pride when they speak about anything to do with Barrie Central.
Highlights would be playing in Chicago at the Midwest National Band Clinic, of course playing it in Kerkrata and Holland in '58. Numerous Kiwanis music festivals. Those are always sort of a highlight of every year, playing in Eaton Auditorium. The only subject I was really any good at it was history, which happened to be what the training of my father was. He was really an English and history teacher. He wasn't a music teacher by training. And I started out and taught history for 4 or 5 years, and then just by chance in a small school in British Columbia, I got a job there because they did need a history teacher, but they also needed an instrumental music teacher. But it was, as my father said, now you've got to get serious with your life. It was a learn as you go sort of thing. And I look back on it with very fond memories. It was time-consuming, all-consuming, and certainly gave me an even higher appreciation of what my father had done. I did it for 25 years. WA said many, many times, look, I'm not a musician. I'm really more of a drill master. By that, he didn't mean that he was some martinet out there browbeating you. He simply meant that he was keeping you at it. And he had the patience of Job and was that diligent. So at one time, in the 60s, I mean, the band rehearsed three nights a week for 2 hours each time, aside from all the class time. And the other secret to it is that he insisted on it being done right. If you're playing out of tune, then you've got to get in tune. And if you haven't got the technique mastered, then you need to get it mastered. And if that took time and diligence and repetition, well, then that's what it took. And it couldn't be some sort of thing, do as you wish, do your own thing, or whatever. You just simply insist on, holding your instrument correctly and placing your fingers correctly and so on, and listening to what you're playing. I think the other major thing he did was that by insisting on playing these difficult transcriptions, students were being educated. They were in the classics, and they were getting this very solid grounding in music. And if you ask any graduate, that's probably the one thing they would mention the most, that if they came from literally no background of serious music at home, this is where they got it and got their appreciation of it. In the science lab, of course, the desk you sat at with the little sinks and so on, and all the drawers for each class, the locked drawers, supposedly. Well, one of them happened to be, I noticed, was open. And of course, if it was open, I had to know what was in there, or probably purloined something was in there. The trick was, of course, as you rummaged around in the drawer with your hand, was to keep your eye on the board and on Heath. And he was a fairly straightforward, straight-laced teacher. And of course, I found a test tube. And as I hauled it out, of course, I didn't realize anything was amiss until the hydrochloric acid that was in it spilled onto my pant leg and began to eat a big hole through the pant leg and into my thigh, and dripped down onto the heel of my sock and destroy a perfectly good pair of socks. Of course, there was the inevitable commotion. Heath came down and of course saw what was taking place, promptly marched me down the hallway to the office. I was half his height, and of course he had to take me by the ear. I swear my one ear's still deformed from it, twisting it as he went down the hallway. I don't think he was taking me down to see TR, but he turned me over to Jessie Hunter, who was the secretary, the mother superior of the school. She exercised a degree of compassion, and I found, I think, some baking soda or some kind of antidote she put on the wound that was now appearing. I still have the scar today on my thigh. Of course, I had a difficult time to explain my shredded trousers to my mother.
Friends from North, Central, Innisfil, Eastview. It's really the place where you make those connections, and to see where everybody's gone in their lives, it's pretty magical, and just very proud that we all got to connect here.
The best way for me to remember Central is the teachers and the friends that I made here that still influence my life.
The number of people that have gone through this institution and gone on to amazing careers all across the country and internationally is incredible. If you do research into the students who attended this school, you will see a veritable who's who of politics and sports and academia. It's just, Barrie should be so proud of Central Collegiate.